charges?
Okay, it's not far away.
It's
3.5 hours.
in your room?
3-4 hours.
Okay.
So that's a decent.
All right. I'll just be prudent with the battery.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks everybody for hanging in there. We're getting late in the day. Go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have some folks filtering in.
Who's not using you?
All right, the topic here today, mobile music. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panel, and we'll go ahead and get right into it. We have a pretty free-form discussion here today. We'll try to keep it somewhat interesting for everybody. I know there's a lot of topics that have been discussed already in this area. So first of all, just to introduce myself, my name is Matt Kleinschmidt. I'm with international market research firm Ipsos Insight. We're a market research consultancy, do a lot of work in the mobile category, specifically myself in the mobile music industry. So pleasure to be here today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say a little bit about each of the panelists, and then of course it's the first time I've met actually all of you, so feel free to embellish and if I forget anything. First of all, to my immediate left, Greg Brown. Greg's a senior manager with AT&T Mobility. Greg has been with AT&T Mobility since 2003 and is responsible for overseeing their full music strategy and product offerings, which include product definition, partner negotiations, and product execution. Greg's currently leading the launch efforts of AT&T Mobility Music and their innovative mobile music experience. So look forward to hearing more about that, challenges that you're facing. To the left of Greg, is that a good?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Good job.
Okay, hey, thanks a lot. Also, Wendy Nussbaum, Vice President, Business Development from Universal Music Group, the E-Labs division. Wendy's duties includes cutting strategic partnerships and content licensing deals, vetting new technologies, and seeking new avenues to bring to market and distribute the music of UMG's artists. Wendy, anything else you'd like to add on that?
That pretty much sums it up.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Okay, very good. Sean Hopwood is U.S. Senior Director of Coding Technologies. Coding Technologies provides audio compression for mobile, digital broadcasting, and the internet. Sean is a senior director and brings more than 15 years of experience to the rich media technology space. In his current role, Sean oversees marketing, business development, and public relations efforts within North America. Very good. And on the far left, we have Darren Sui. Darren's CEO of MSpot, which is a mobile content aggregator. Darren founded the company in 2004 with the goal of transforming mobile phones into the medium for rich multimedia entertainment that the masses will embrace. And he led MSpot's charge to be the first mobile entertainment service in North America to stream a full format radio service, including news, sports, finance, talk, and music channels as well. Darren, is good, Summer? Okay, sounds good. All right, just to go ahead and start things off here. I know hopefully everyone has some questions for the panel. We'll get into that in just a little bit. I just wanted to go ahead and kind of set the context. Our organization has tracked the category for quite a while. We've seen over the last few years the embrace of ringtones and the sort of leveling off of some of that adoption, both overseas as well as here in the U.S. Following that, there was, as we all know, a lot of excitement around over-the-air downloading. And a lot of folks really thought that would be really the next big thing. In the U.S. anyway, we've seen some experimentation with that. Roughly about 5% only of U.S. mobile phone owners have experimented with that ever. About 3% do it on a regular basis, past days. In addition, we're starting to see a lot of streaming radio and streaming music services, and really a lot of the things that we're hearing about recently are around the idea of discovery, using the mobile device as a discovery mechanism, and hopefully being an entree or a trigger to a physical purchase or a full experience audio download. One of the things that I think is most interesting in some of the research we've seen is satisfaction levels with over-the-air are far behind what we see in the internet world as well as satellite radio. So there does appear to be some issues with user interface and could be contributing to more rampant adoption of that behavior. So a lot of things going on. I think there's a lot of cool technologies out there that I'm sure the panelists could talk about as well. What I'd like to do just to begin with is just to have everyone on the panel, if you could just describe in your own opinion, with everything that's going on out there, what do you personally think is the most exciting opportunity or exciting thing that's coming up for you personally in your business in the mobile music world? Give you 5 seconds to think about that. Who'd like to begin? Darren?
Sure. Let's see. Well, I think at a very high level, we are very, very excited about the prospect of the mobile phone, the default portable media player or music player for consumers. And, I think, Apple made the announcement of selling the 100 million iPods since the iPod launch, which was about 5 years ago, I guess. But if you look at the stats for just Sony Ericsson and Nokia alone last year, they combined sold over 125 million music phones just for a single year. So, and on top of that, the carriers are, at least in the U.S., are heavily subsidizing the cost of these handsets. So we're really looking at the mobile phone as a great platform in terms of music. And then the question, of course, is really what is the most successful way of or building a business or on that particular platform, whether it's subscription-based music, whether it's the OTA downloads, whether it's streaming radio. But what's exciting to us is figuring that out. Absolutely believe in the mobile platform.
Okay, so the platform as a whole. Okay. Greg, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I mean, Darren, a lot of Darren's comments are very relevant. I mean, I think that there's no more natural fit of content, in my opinion, than music on a phone. And I think that we're at the very early stages of it. I mean, I think a lot of the issues that you're seeing, it's kind of a growing pain situation. I mean, the technology is just not right. The networks are just getting in there. I mean, at least from a singular perspective, the technology is. There's a lot of great ideas out there. Trying to organize it on the phone, the technology to make it all work on the phone is just starting to get there. And I think the opportunity is just amazing. I mean, I just look at myself with my phone. I mean, I've pretty much converted entirely to using my phone as my mobile music player, and it's a fantastic experience. So just personally, I'm very excited about when we start getting more with the right technology on it to enable music on the phone. I think you'll see a very rapid shift to more people. It won't be an anomaly to use music on your phone. It'll be the norm.
Okay. So you're here from AT&T Mobility, and the single most exciting thing that you see in the future is not the iPhone?
Yeah. So I think the iPhone is very exciting.
Okay,
It's bigger than that.
Okay.
It's bigger than that.
Sounds good. Wendy, how about you?
I mean, from a content perspective, we're very excited about the prospects of all different, areas of mobile services. I mean, ringbacks haven't taken off as quickly as they have in, places like Korea, but it's still growing for us as a segment. We've got, over-the-air downloads, which has just continues to grow. I know you mentioned the compatibility issues and, consumer satisfaction, but, as more and more handsets get out there with the functionality, ability to handle it, and more consumers get used to it, I think that's still a huge growth area for us. Okay. And with the iPhone launching, later this summer, I think there's going to be additional focus from consumers and awareness on what you can do on mobile phones, and whether they buy an iPhone or not an iPhone, it'll still bring attention to, music on cell phones as a general, and will give an uplift to the industry as a whole, I think. So there's a lot that's still going to happen, I think, this year. And as Greg mentioned, I think it's just kind of growing pains, to get into this market and having consumers be aware of what their phones are capable of doing, and how to discover the music on the phones. There's new services and engines that are going to be launching that help to make that easier in the future. So I think for us, we're very excited about this segment.
Okay. And so from a content type, from a music label perspective and licensing and sort of an area that is you perceive to be sort of a good opportunity for you, is the focus more on broadening awareness of an experience with ringbacks as opposed to OTA, or is it sort of?
No, for us, we're looking at every single possibility where, any type of exploitation of music. So whether it's through ringbacks, video tones, radio on phones, videos, for us, our physical sales are already down 20% this year. So, we're looking at all potential, products and services related to music, and there isn't one specific area that we're focused on more than the other. It's pretty much, we have to focus on everything at this point.
Thank you. Sean?
It's great I get to go last. I think applications. I think one thing that we can all use more of on the mobile phone. And it's not that there's one application that sort of is a killer application. I think it's a range of applications that sort of make the whole process of acquiring music sort of seamless. And I think that that combined with handsets that make it attainable, I think are the exciting things. So looking for the applications that need to come onto the mobile phone.
Now, is it any particular one application, or is it more the synchronization, the unity of a host or suite of applications being able to work together?
Well, I think it's the transparency.
Okay.
The transparency of the applications, in the sense that I don't have to go and acquire the app, for example. It's on my phone.
Yeah.
I don't have to know whether or not the song is being streamed, or it's being downloaded, or it's being sideloaded. It's just there when I want to listen to it. So I really think the applications are starting to show themselves. Show some interesting approaches to, as you mentioned, discovery. And I think that going forward, I think we're going to see some interesting transitional things between discovery, purchase, transferring and sharing to your friends. I think that will become interesting.
Okay, good. Amanda, you mentioned just briefly the iPhone and building awareness. One of the questions I have for everyone would just be, in terms of the iPhone itself, clearly this is not an over-the-air device. It's more of an iPod that has, mobile phone functionality. Is the key benefit of the iPhone in the mobile music world going to be just building awareness of the linkage between phone and music, or do you think that it's going to have broader effects on, experimentation with the functionality? Will it actually lead to further embrace of mobile music and OTA downloading, for example, on other handsets?
Well, so I think it's a little bit of a combination of both. I think the iPhone is without a doubt going to spur innovation, and you're already seeing innovation from the handset manufacturers, and basically, really taking music very seriously on the device and creating form factors and such that will, that'll only make the music experience better.
From a competitive standpoint, a competitive response to the iPhone?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. From specifically, more than anything, I think it really boils down to the handset side.
Okay.
From what that's just what I see.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more, device manufacturers focused on that functionality, how to make it better, better battery life, better, search and, discovery on the phone, because, getting something over the air, I think, is a impulsive and more satisfactory thing for the consumer than having to plug in PC and sideload. So from a consumer perspective, having something delivered to the phone and making it seamless, like the iPod was able to do on the PC, is what people are striving to do, and maybe that'll happen later this year, but the introduction of the iPhone, I think, just kind of raises everybody to that next level, in the entire industry.
Okay. Sean, from your perspective, do you see the quality of audio quality in terms of some of the compression on the mobile side of things? Do you see that in any way a barrier to broader adoption?
I actually think it's an opportunity for broader adoption. I recently experienced a mobile radio service that wasn't using our technology. And I couldn't believe that they were selling this thing. I was like, how could someone purchase it? Is it free? And then, you pay for it. I couldn't believe it. So I think the opportunity opportunity for compression is going to lead to some very interesting solutions on the phone. I don't know if anyone knows our company. Well, I like to say we're the company that most people have heard, but probably never heard of. We provide the audio codec that goes in to most phones that people use to listen to music on, so Motorola, Nokia, Sony Ericsson, and so forth. And we're actually at the point where we've compressed audio down to the capability of surround sound on a mobile phone at 64 kilobits per second. That's then listened to by either your headphones, or if you plug it into a cradle or something, it will give you 5.1 out through your surround sound speakers, through DTS on your receiver, or if it's in the cradle. So, I mean, we're seeing that sort of compression that's coming into the phone that's going to lead, I think, to some very interesting applications between voice, for example, and music. For example, if you're on your phone and you're listening to something and a call comes in, maybe the voice goes outwards towards the side and the voice channel comes up. So this, switch, this abrupt switch or nothing. So some interesting applications like that, as well as obviously mobile television with, again, the ability to get surround sound onto your phone and listen to it and experience it.
Okay, thanks. You mentioned mobile television. We think a little bit about just mobile content in general, and I guess perhaps Darren, a good question for you would be, what kind of trends do you see in terms of content, and whether it be audio, video? Where is the market? Where do you see it going in terms of the mobile space? Where do you think it's kind of plateaued? Are there other opportunities that you think are untapped at this point?
So on the content side, we offer services from a purely audio, like the streaming radio service, as well as we do music videos, and we even actually do full-length movies, believe it or not, on mobile cell phones as well, working with the major movie studios. But and we track, just like a typical website, we can track usage behaviors, the average session length in terms of use and so forth. And we're seeing that, just streaming radio in a passive format is actually very, very strong in terms of a content category. Let me give you guys some ideas. We currently have the radio service running on 5 different carriers in North America, and on average, on a monthly basis, we're seeing a little bit over an hour worth of usage per user, and the average session duration is anywhere from 11 to 12 minutes per session, so that tells us that on average, people come back to the service 5 to 6 times on a monthly basis. And compare that to a lot of the other types of multimedia services, including streaming TV and video clips and so forth. Those are really, really strong numbers. So we've been working a lot and very hard at just improving the programming on the audio radio side.
Okay. In terms of more of a passive sort of push radio or push audio technology, what do you think is driving that? Is it just more of the passive nature of mobile device and people wanting to have something kind of fed to them while they're on their device, or is there a bigger sort of looming compatibility issue that folks aren't adopting over-the-air downloads and permanent sort of ownership of music as they would traditionally think on a mobile device because of incompatibility with their broader digital collection? So
Yeah.
how do you see that?
This is my speculation. I mean, the way to get to that answer is you got to do surveys, right? And we haven't done surveys, but I would speculate that will come in terms of a physical purchase of songs, OTA, and so forth. I mean, it's no secret that I think Steve Jobs said that 97% of the music on an iPod is actually not purchased from an iTunes store, which means that it's DRM free from somewhere else. So, I mean, there's no reason to believe that, in a mature ecosystem like iTunes, where there aren't a lot of full track purchases, that somehow on the mobile side, things are going to be drastically different. It might be a little bit different, but wouldn't be drastically different. So, at least for me, I wasn't too surprised in terms of OTA numbers, sales, and so forth. On the usage side, why does audio do better than some of the videos? I actually think that watching your phone is still a learned behavior, to be honest. Whereas using it as a phone to listen, that's native. And so, and you can walk around and you can multitask. do audio, whereas with watching video, you got to stop and do it. I think maybe that's some of the reasons why we're seeing the kind of stats that we do on our side.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. And Wendy, from a music industry or a label perspective, is there any preferences with regard to OTA versus personalized radio or more passive radio in your business strategy? What you're hoping will take off? Is there a difference, or at this point is it you're hoping anything will really?
Well, I mean, there is a big difference for us because the more interactive it is, the higher the economics are for us from a kind of royalty perspective. So, you know, there's various, you know, for a permanent track that you buy, we obviously get a higher share of the retail price. If it's interactive radio, it's, you know, somewhere up there, and if it's kind of just statutory radio, there's rates that are, you know, the sound exchange, you know, and the copyright licensing boards. So for us, the more the user is able to do various things with the music and take it portable and to, you know, be interactive with it, then that's a great consumer experience. But from a, you know, kind of content owner perspective, we have to be, you know, compensated for that type of usage. So, you know, obviously we get paid more on OTA downloads. We take off and, you know, and enable that market. But, you know, we have to kind of see the balance. People want to use music in a variety of different ways. You know, there's passive experiences, as, you know, Darren was mentioning. If you're in your car, if you're, you know, just standing in line with your cell phone, you know, waiting for, you know, in line at the bank or, you know, somewhere else, or at a baseball game, you know, so there's a lot of different ways that people consume music, and we want to enable that. And so for us, really the focus is how do you enable that behavior, but also make sure that we're able to support, you know, the kind of the industry that, you know, we have with our artists and all the writers and, you know, the company itself to support, you know, this type of usage.
Okay, good. One of the things that I think is fascinating about just all the different music categories out there, you know, we have obviously physical, mobile, web-based, satellite, terrestrial. It's interesting how in a lot of the conferences that I'm at, there's really a sort of a siloed approach to kind of how people think about all these different channels of acquisition. And one of the things I think is really interesting is when you start looking at it from a consumer perspective and the interactions between channel. So folks who are listening on a mobile device and then maybe purchasing offline, or a mobile is pushing people to more of a web-based experience or web-based purchase. Just pose this question to the panel. Is that something that is in the minds of the folks back at the home offices? Are you doing things to kind of enable cross-channel acquisition? Is it seen as an opportunity, or is it something that, you know, is really outside of the territory when you think of this is mobile music, let's make mobile music happen within the silo?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. So, I mean, from our perspective, I mean, we absolutely look at it a holistic. Okay. That, you know, we know that the consumer is acquiring music in a variety of different forms, and actually, you know, as we look at what we've launched and what we continue to support is definitely a two-screen approach, if you will, like a computer, you know, from the PC and from the mobile device, and, you know, we look to each of those to complement each other, because again, we know where most people manage their music today on the PC, and so we can't ignore that area in order to be able to have a successful music strategy.
So I actually think that the lack of transparency and seamless operation is part of what's holding mobile hostage and almost making it siloed in some aspects. For example, I have probably two or three iPods. I have 2 or 3 PCs. Most of us probably have work PCs. I have music on my phone, you know, and there's no way to sort of access all of those things collectively, right? So if I have iTunes, you know, content, and I can listen to it on my phone, well, hopefully soon, right? But there has to be, I think, it has to go away that you have this notion that I'm going to buy a song on my mobile phone and then try to figure out how to get it on my PC, or buy it on my PC, but then figure out how to get it on my phone. it needs to be a seamless operation so that even if I'm discovering music, moving music around, sharing music, that it's not siloed or stuck, you know, in the place that I originally acquired it. And I think that's a big problem. That's a really big problem. I think once that is solved, it's going to help a lot of not only just the mobile music space, but the content space in general to really grow.
I mean, from our perspective, we're seeing, you know, online and mobile starting to converge quite a bit. I mean, already you have partners like Napster, which were traditionally online, you know, subscription services doing things, partnering with, you know, carriers to bring their service to the cell phone. We've done it already with physical, where you have, you know, your Targets and your Best Buys of the world, you know, converging with online companies like Apple and, you know, all the other services that are out there as well. So, you know, and as devices get smarter and get better, Wi-Fi enables things. You know, the lines between PC, traditional PC, and mobile start to get really blurry. So for us, we definitely look at, you know, what does the world look like when you can get your music wherever you want, whenever you want. There's that celestial jukebox in the sky type of access. You know, how do the rights work? And, you know, access the music, and, you know, how do we ultimately enable all that to happen? So, you know, it's a big thing that we focus on all the time in our industry.
Okay. Unfortunately, you have to rely a lot on the technology partners and whatnot to help enable that to happen. Okay. Darren, any thoughts on that?
So we are a service provider, and we started out in the mobile space, but our customers, which are traditionally the carriers, we are getting pressure to expand our platform to go beyond just mobile. And I mean, if you look at, you know, some of our competitors, it's and these are some of the, you know, the very well entrenched folks like Real, that has kind of a soup to nuts, everything from PC to broadband to mobile. So to be competitive, we're definitely getting pressure to be able to expand our offering to beyond the mobile platform.
Do you look to other silos or other platforms for content trends?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the OTA, for example, is a big one in terms of, you know, early on we're contemplating whether we want to play in the full track, you know, in the full track world. We sort of looked at what's going on online and made our decision that way. I think the only difference here, though, I would caveat, is that I think the mobile carriers, have done a good job of educating consumers to pay for everything, whereas the online model is everything free. Because on the handset side, you know, I have to pay for my voicemail, my text messages, and which is good in terms of having a viable business ecosystem and so forth. So that's the only thing that I think it's different, that just because something doesn't work, for example, a subscription-based service, that doesn't work on the online side, I would discount it when looking at it on the mobile side.
I mean, people are paying, you know, $250 for a ringtone that's 20 seconds, and they're not willing to pay 99 cents for a full song on the PC. So there is the kind of premium, you know, that you get for access on a mobile phone that consumers are still willing to pay for.
What do you think, is that a deferred billing element? Is it an impulse type purchase, or what do you think is really?
You know, it's impulse. It's also personalization. You know, having a certain song play on your phone when you're out with your friends says something about who you are, and people are willing to pay for that as a part of their, you know, overall persona. And so I think they're willing to pay for that. It's also very easy, and it's impulsive, and you may forget that you bought 10 ringtones last month until you see your bill. But I mean, you see the problems with text messaging. I mean, you know, kids texting, and there have been problems because they're running up their parents' bills, but now there are plans that accommodate that. So people are willing to pay on the cell phones, and, you know, there's that. I don't know what it is. The mentality is just slightly different from what you do see on the PC side, where everything has always been, it should be for free. You know, music should be for free. Everything's ad supported. It's a slightly different mindset, I think.
You know, I'm glad you brought up text messaging, because I think that one of the things that You started off the panel by talking about how OTA is really hadn't taken off and so forth. And I'll bet you, if you were at panels 7, 8 years ago, they were probably saying the same thing about text messaging.
Yeah.
And now text messaging is the penetration rate is unbelievable. I mean, the text messaging is such a huge business at the carriers right now, and it's really hit kind of another level of growth. And I think that when we talk about things like OTA, I mean, we're so nascent in this space that to be kind of saying that that there's no market there or so forth is really a little bit early, to kind of make those kind of comments, I think.
I think most people are aware of the KDDI story, or the fact, KDDI in Japan launched their over-the-air music service, I think it's 2004, and they're selling I think it's $2.50 or $3.25 per song, and they've sold 50 million songs in like a short period of time. It's phenomenal. They're making money. They're printing money in Japan. The interesting thing on the $2.50 ringtone, I think the perception on top of the fact it's impulsive, it's also, I think most people think that they're going to only buy one or two, right? You only really need one or two ringtones and I'm done. But obviously is a never-ending, perpetual thing. Hopefully, if you're that versed. But with new discovery services, hopefully that will go up. But it's one of those things where you will continuously buy songs over and over. So you're really responsive to the charge of each song, because if I start this behavior, I could be into it 5 months from now, having spent quite a bit of money. If it's if money. So.
Quick, just switch gears for just a second. Let's talk a little bit about the consumers using these services. Some of the research that we've done, we've seen that this is something that, particularly on ringtones and over-the-air downloads, is attracting youth. Traditionally, a segment that has not been really into the fee-based digital music market. So, a good thing from that standpoint to be able to actually monetize that consumer group. But are there other trends out there? I mean, who are you guys seeing as being the core target market for these sort of mobile music offerings, and will it change as we move forward in the next couple of years? Greg?
I
saw you looking down.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about it. I was thinking about the question. Well, obviously, we haven't launched an OTA service yet. It's definitely something that we're looking at. But from kind of the things that we have seen as the target customers, I think and what we've heard generally speaking in the industry, it's really very similar to the ringtone market, actually. A very similar demographic, similar buying patterns in the context of similar genres of content and so forth. I think a lot of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because that's what's kind of promoted and so forth. But I think there's certainly an opportunity around, especially since music, there's so many different folks that enjoy music as opposed to ringtones. There's an opportunity to go broader and deeper, with a full music offering.
Are you thinking about it from a marketing standpoint of completely kind of a separate consumer group from your core, mobile subscriber, or is it, or are you looking for particular segments within your subscriber base to really sort of target market these sort of services too?
Yeah, we have certain, we have like segment marketing, groups, and those, the way we've kind of organized is that, those are the groups that are most likely to buy this kind of data products and so forth. And I think that's, which is consistent with, it really is, youth, Hispanic is another one that's very attractive as well. So, I think it's in those general areas.
Yeah, we've seen, if you compare the market online, just like say on iTunes, and what gets purchased in their kind of top 10 on a regular basis compared to top 10 master tones, it looks very different. You have your kind of rock, kind of alt rock, genres that usually rise to the top, kind of your Jack Johnson and, you know, things like that, that rise to the top on iTunes. Whereas on mobile, what we've seen is it's very hip-hop based, hip-hop and urban. Latin, as Greg mentioned, does very well in that, you know, in mobile as well. So it is a slightly different demographic that is purchasing that we see for mobile products versus, you know, kind of in the traditional online iTunes world. And that's just another way for us to, you know, focus on that type of consumer. So we've been, you know, actively trying to work with everybody to, you know, focus on those types of demographics because we can cater to them specifically for, you know, mobile specific products, whereas they may not be purchasing online.
Okay. Darren, are you seeing any of your customers providing any information to you about sort of who they're targeting and their core market, and are they asking for types of content as a result, or are you seeing any trends in that area?
Yeah, our most popular genre for on the radio side is urban hip hop content. I think it's compared to the next closest genre, which I think is like, you know, the top 40 stuff, it's like 4-1. So urban is overwhelmingly the most popular content, and that actually has been consistent from day one, which is 2.5 years ago when we first launched the service. As a matter of fact, because very early on, the phones are still fairly expensive that supported streaming radio. Back then, it was like a Sanyo 5600 that you had to buy for, you know, $275 subsidized 2 years plan. So it's pretty expensive. We actually thought that the demo for the consumers, the demo of the consumers for that kind of a phone would be sort of the affluent mobile professionals. And when we actually order our playlist, our genres, we actually put like the decades or the easy listening stuff at the very top, thinking that was going to be it, and then sort of surface down all the younger and, you know, day one, hip hop just, you know, just went to the sky, it just skyrocketed. And speaking about sort of the Latin content a little bit, 6 months into the service, just out of, you know, we were just experimenting. We actually put up a very channel, and now that thing is like the number 3, and flip-flops between number 2 and number 3 genre next to hip-hop. So, you know, and so we don't know exactly the demo, but, you know, you can take an Arbitron report for radio, look at the kind of content that's popular, and then sort of calculate backwards what your audience is probably is. And, you know, we're guessing it's the younger guys or younger folks.
Okay. We've seen actually in a lot of the research we've done where not on the mobile side, but on just the web-based internet-delivered music, we've seen just in the last year a lot of movement in sort of the country genre, which seems to be kind of catching up to many of the more early adopters previous years. And I'm just wondering, is that in anyone's sights in terms of on the mobile category that country could be, you know, something that's going to hit next year?
No.
Hopefully not.
We have a country channel, and that does not perform. Has never performed.
Doesn't at all.
Nope.
Okay.
Don't know why, but no.
We do sell a lot of country music though, so I mean, that is an area that we hope will continue to grow. But it hasn't been a huge seller for us, but it's still something that we focus on to try to get out more.
Is that
and
on the
more
OTA side or?
Both OTA and master tones.
Okay, okay.
I think traditionally, you know, a lot of people have just been focused on that hip hop sells so well,
Yeah.
and it's kind of, you know, a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you want to sell, you're gonna put on the top of the deck the things that are gonna sell. And being at the top of the deck, it automatically sells, and it's hard to kind of, you know, navigate down to find country or to kind of find the other genres. You know, so it's a little more difficult to kind of get up there in the top, you know, 10 lists and things like that. But I think there's a whole segment of the U.S. that is very, you know, country specific. You know, they love their country music. So.
Okay, let's talk just briefly. I wanted to touch on branding for a little bit. The mobile space, we have kind of a complex branding suite and relationship. We have obviously the service provider, the carrier. We have the handset. We also have some aggregators. We have some other online service providers who are providing content for some of the mobile carriers. Moving forward in the future, we saw in the mobile space just over the last year and a half, 2 years, particularly with the Razr, as is really sort of changing a little bit of the dynamic in the decision process about service plans, where handset really started to filter into that decision process and really became a key driver of what particular carrier or service provider you may be going for or going with. Moving forward the next couple of years, who's going to own that relationship? Is it ultimately going to be the carrier who has the billing relationship, or will mobile music be driven by a device, for example? And obviously excluding iPhone, just for the sake of argument, are there other devices out there that could be sort of that really a key driver or lure to bring people into the mobile music world? Greg, do you see anything in that like that on your side?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, so,
Obviously, you guys are going through some branding.
yeah, I mean,
as well.
generally speaking, I guess I think that people are at the point, or going to be, in the real near future on choosing a carrier based on music.
Okay.
I mean, I think that they're still choosing a carrier a lot of times based on again, let's exclude the iPhone in this category, but I think they're choosing a carrier based on network services and network coverage and so forth and those kinds of things. So I don't see that changing in the near term.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else care to comment on that?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, though, I think, the device manufacturers, and Greg is in a better position to answer this, but they want to sell to all carriers. So based on that fact, there's no exclusivity, and therefore, I can get the same razor on, Singular, now it's available on Sprint. So picking handsets, I don't see people using handsets as as a way of picking a carrier. I think the network coverage comes first before the handset.
And yeah, I mean, content, same. I mean, there are exclusives sometimes for periods of time on handsets. There's exclusives on content and so forth. But again, I don't think that we're at the point where people are. If that's kind of what you're getting at, I don't think people are at the point of making those decisions based on those facts to like go with a carrier or so,
Okay.
or to go with a phone service.
So in terms of a carrier like Sprint launching a device like the Upstage, which is clearly a music play and really a strong music positioning, do you feel that is, people, it's not necessarily going to lure people to Sprint because of the device, and it's more serving their existing customer base and perhaps, running to reduce churn?
Yeah, I do feel that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Just before we go ahead and open up the questions, I just thought I'd pose one final question to the panel. Just in terms of, there's so many opportunities in this space. I just think that with that, it's almost like there's so many opportunities that you don't really know what to focus on, and there's so many different interoperability issues and those sorts of things as well. I guess I would like, each one of you to sort of say, well, if you had to choose one particular item that you think is the biggest barrier to broader consumer adoption in mobile music, and there may be more than one, but if there is one that you could sort of encapsulate your feelings about your own organization or you personally, what would that be? Sean, would you care to start?
Sure. Actually, for a long time, the thing that really was a bothersome problem for us was, they had the chicken and egg problem, that there weren't enough phones that supported music, and the phones that did support music were the higher end phones, the more expensive phones that, obviously most people didn't have, couldn't afford, so forth. So sort of the barrier that, well, we've been working pretty hard to go over or cross it, is being able to bring mobile music down into a phone that's, for example, sold in India for $45. And that really, that doesn't exist today. You really cannot go to some of the, well, for example, most of the phone companies don't have a ubiquitous coverage of phones that support music. So if you want to buy a particular phone, you then have to ask the question, well, does it support music? Does it support this type of music service? And typically, it really doesn't. So you have to pick from either what they offer you go somewhere else. So I think trying to get ubiquitous coverage amongst the phones that are offered by the carriers is going to be important. And for example, KDDI in Japan, just to go back to that as an example, they very, very quickly made it so that every phone that they sold had their music service available on it. So you couldn't even buy one that didn't have it on it. So you know, instantly that customer was a customer, and they were able to upsell to that person. And that doesn't exist here in the States. And as I mentioned, in certain, you know, obviously in India and Latin American countries, it's not going to exist there for a while unless we get the cost of those music phones down.
Okay. So enabled hardware would be yours.
Absolutely. Well, from our point of view, we sell hardware. I mean, well, we don't sell hardware. We sell to companies that make hardware.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Darren?
The biggest barrier that we see is actually just awareness.
Awareness.
I don't know how many times I hear, you know, I show something to my friend on a phone, and they're like, oh, I didn't know a phone can do this, or I show it on his, you know, and I show him that it's actually capable not only on my phone, but on his phone too. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Okay. It's you know, I think we're spending a lot of time cramming features and functionalities, and, you know, we're doing a good job. I mean, these phones, I mean, you know, it's so different now versus even a year ago, and I think consumers need to get caught up and understand that, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that, and awareness not only in terms of the features, but also just, you know, content too. It's so hard to find content because the screen is so small, and you've got 50 brands alone just for music that you know, including MTV and VH1, and just, you know, consumers are overwhelmed. So I think awareness is the biggest hurdle in my opinion right now.
Okay. Sounds good. Wendy?
One of the big barriers, I don't know if it's, but that I see is, you know, similar to along the lines of what Darren was saying, is search. It takes a lot of clicks to get down to what you're looking for, and then you have, you know, there's the Mastertone application, which is separate from the full track store, which is separate from the Ringback store. So from our point of view, we'd rather have one music store where if you like Eminem, you want to get an Eminem track, whether it's the track, the Mastertone, or the Ringback, you can just go there to one page and scroll down and say, okay, I want to buy maybe all three tracks or all three products, and maybe you get a discount for it. But the search is still limiting, and so I think consumers get frustrated and they can't find what they want very easily, or, you know, the network goes down or something happens, and, you know, you just can't buy what you're looking for in a very simple and easy way. And so for us, we'd love to see, you know, better applications, better search functionality, because it is a very small window, and, you know, it gets frustrating when you have to have, you know, so many clicks to actually get to what you ultimately want.
Okay. That's good. Good.
Yeah, I mean, these guys took pretty much everything. I mean, you know, everything I would say is around definitely about making it a more seamless experience on the device, and better organization of content, better organization of merchandising, and then content costs. No, I'm kidding. So, no, you know, but
What about data charges?
so. But yeah, but seriously, the big thing is, I think, organization on the phone. I think that it's just, you know, it takes there's a relatively long process to get things designed into the phone. A lot of lead time to make things happen, and to you know, to create. You might have an idea now; it's going to take a while to get it, you know, baked onto the phone. And so that, you know, figuring out a way to kind of, you know, again, we're at the early stages of this. You know, a lot of us are just kind of launching this, and hopefully over time through search mechanisms and better you know, merchandising tools, we'll be able to offer a more consolidated approach to things, whether it's actual individual pieces of content or applications, you know, that make sense to give people a complete music experience.
Great. I think it's interesting. Very functional type of things here that are barriers. We have, you know, the hardware being enabled to actually facilitate this sort of content. We have awareness, and then we have sort of the user interface and the merchandising component. I think it's interesting because everyone in this category and in digital music in general, it's so easy for all of us to get ahead of ourselves and start bringing on these extra features and advanced applications and that sort of thing, and we kind of forget about sort of the nuts and bolts. have to be there in order for new markets to really take off. So I think that's a very, very telling insight there. Should we open it up really quick? We have time for a couple questions. We're done now. Oh, we're done. Okay, sounds good. Feel free to talk to the panelists individually then. Thank you. Thanks everybody.
Huh?
I had to say that.
Wow.